In the previous seminars, we explained how everything in the physical universe is all included in the upper cycle of the universe, which is included in the external life force, which is the leftovers or waste material of the lowest types of angels, which are called Ophanim or cycles. Now we're going to continue to explain how the various souls of the animals and all the other creatures of the physical world have their source in the Chayot HaKodesh, the upper animals, which we explained before that the Ophanim were a lower animal, a lower angel that are called like a still life cycles, and their soul is the angels which are called the holy animals. And there's various descriptions in prophecies in the Bible where it says that wherever the animals move, that's where the Ophanim move. In other words, that the original movement of the Ophanim is according to the movement, the movement of the cycles is according to the movement of the animals. Now, in order to understand all this, first of all, we have to reiterate what we said in the first part of this seminar, that Kabbalah is, the way of Kabbalah is that the hisbonenus, the actual learning of the thing, comes before the actual contemplation on the thing. So that in order to understand consecutive levels of what we're talking about, you first of all have to understand previous levels, like we've been talking all along in the allegories of the teacher who first of all teaches the first grade intellect, then the second grade intellect, etc. So we are now going to make use of a lot of the concepts that have already been built up in the first 5 seminars. So as we explained in seminar number 1, one of the things of the method of hisbonenus, and that's why in hisbonenus, which is of the root of bina, there's 2 ends rather than 1 end. The letter N, nun in Hebrew, there's 2 of them rather than just 1. Hisbonenus means that you have to, in order to understand something properly, you have to go over and over it again. So if you don't have a firm grasp of the first few seminars, it will get more and more difficult. We suggest that these seminars be reviewed several times so that you'll be able to follow with the concepts, because it's very hard to try to explain them over and over again as these things were explained before. So now to explain again how the souls of the animals and all the creatures in this world, including, as we said, the 70 genies and various demonic forces, etc. in the world, all come out from the upper angels, which are called the holy animals. So in order to explain this, we can go back to the soul of the cat, that basically we explained before, that the soul of the cat is made out of letters, really. What are these letters? In the same way that the physical body of the cat has the shape of the cat because of the letters of the DNA, so that these are the innermost letters of his cat body. So these letters come from the external letters of the cat soul, which, in other words, this is the soul of this particular cat, and that's why this cat comes out this way with this particular coloring, this particular size, this particular character. As we noted, cats, besides all the different attributes which they have, which is how fast they can run or how high they can jump, there's also a tiny little cat personality there, with a tiny little cat brain and a tiny little cat emotions. As anybody who owns a cat or any other type of a pet realizes that not all cats are exactly the same. The same like people have different characters, cats also have different characters. And the mixtures of these characters come from the upper emotions. as we said, in the upper spherot, there is the intellectual spherot and the emotional spherot. However, as we explained, in the upper spherot, even in the spherot of the lowest world, this is in a way of total unification with God. And even in the lower worlds, the lights are still infinite in regards to an actual cat. So that basically the lights from the inner sephirot are transferred out to the outer angels. And it is in the angels that the actual division of the light comes about into the particular creatures that will get them. So that the original division comes out in the animals, and from that it goes to the Ophanim. So that, for instance, in the animals, it says that their type of angels, it has 4 faces. A face of a man, a face of a lion, a face of a bull, and a face of an eagle. Now, basically, in general, the souls of man come in general from the face of man, and the souls of the animals come in general from the other 3 faces. So in other words, birds would be from the eagle, and all the animals, like we said, a cat is an animal that tends towards bloodlust and cruelty, so that would be from the face of the lion, which a cat is sort of like a little type of lion. And the gentle animals will come from the face of the bull. But this is just in general, because actually, much more particularistically, it explains that the animal soul of man, meaning the actual soul that keeps him alive in the same way that an animal has a soul that keeps his body alive, so there's a similar force that keeps a man's body alive, really actually comes out from the face of the bull. But within the face of the bull, it comes out from the face of the man within the face of the bull. So in other words, that each of these 4 faces also have 4 faces. And basically, these 4 faces are according to the 4 directions and represent the quality of kindness on the right, the quality of might or judgment on the left, the quality of tiferes, beauty, which means the combination of the right and left, of kindness and sternness into mercy, which is a combined power which includes in it both powers together working in conjunction. And then the power of malchus, of kingdom, or communicating out in the back. And within each one of those, there's also the subdivisions of those. So, in other words, these are just 4 general divisions of the life force which the holy animals get. And even though it's a division into 4 particular powers, which includes all the 7 emotions in it, because in other words, the 7 emotions are made of the upper 3 emotions, and then the 3 lower gut emotions which correspond to them. So in other words, these upper 3 emotions of kindness, sternness, and mercy include within them the next 3 emotions. And then Malchus, kingdom, the emotion to express all these emotions. So that's, in other words, within these 4 faces are included all the 7 emotions. And the basic thing is that even though the basic division has been made, so that, as we explained before, that the way the emotions are in the soul itself is in a unified way, so that obviously we understand that the way that they are in the sphere of actual godliness, these emotions are a total unity. And it's only in the angels that they start becoming divisible, so that later it will be able to be divided into all the particular various creatures that are going to be in the physical universe. But however, according to the division that we just described in these angels, it's understood that the angel, even though he's dividing the power that's coming to him, the light that's coming to him, into the four directions, into the four supernal directions, and each one is a different type of emotion or way of looking at things, means that different kind of characteristics come out of it. Out of the emotion of kindness and gentleness come out the gentle animals. Now the emotions of might and sternness come out the animals like a lion or something like that. But however, even though it's divided already into four within the Chayos HaKodesh, within the holy animals, the division is still within one animal. So in other words, the way that the division is made into the four different ways of doing it means whether you're going to do it with kindness or whether you're going to do it with sternness, etc., is all within the same angel. So that even though there's already a division of faces, but it's faces of the same personality. It's one angel with four faces. So that in other words, all these different characteristics are really included within the actual character of the angel himself. Like we understand that, like they say a person shows different faces to different people, that there can be more than one faces within one personality, but nonetheless, really these faces are not totally different people, they're really the same person and different faces of the same person. So in the same way, in these angels, the fact that they have four faces means that there's already a beginning of the division of the light that's coming down from the actual divine light into angel light, which in angel light it's already divided into actually separate four directions of how the emotions can go. But it's still a division within one being. And the further division happens in the cycles, in the Ophanim, which in Hebrew, Ophanim can mean two things. One thing that Ophanim means is circles. Like in Hebrew, the word bicycle is Ophnayim, means two Ophanim, two circles. Another thing that Ophanim can mean ways. Like if you want to say how many ways can we do this thing, we say how many Ophanim can we do this thing. And these two meanings in Hebrew are not two different things, but basically they're the same thing. That means that the circle of something, the cycle of something, is all the different Ophanim, the Ophan of something, the cycle of something, is all the different Ophanim, all the different ways that this thing can be done. Like for instance, the weather. The cycle of the weather goes through all the different ways that the weather can be. In other words, it goes through spring, and then summer, and then winter, and then fall. And that's all the different ways the weather can be. And that's what it means, that it goes through all the different ways of the cycle of the weather. And really, these four different ways, we understand that really each one of the four different ways can also be divided into four different ways. That, for instance, in the summer is not all only one type of weather. It changes. Not only that, in the beginning of the summer might not be so hot, so it could be the spring of the summer, and then comes the summer of the summer when it's really hot, and then comes the fall of the summer where it's still hot but getting not so hot. Then the end of the summer is again getting cooler and moving into the fall, which is like the winter of the summer. And then there's, of course, further subdivisions until there's the exact weather of each day. And also, as far as the cycles of the weather, basically relate to the cycles of the universe. In other words, it has to do with how everything in the universe turns around everything else in the universe. And this is the basic thing of how the upper cycles of the constellations affect things on Earth. So on Earth, it depends what part of the sky you're under. So for instance, if you're under the North Star, it means on the North Pole, you're going to have a very cold climate. And if you're under the equator, between the two lines that separate the equatorial zone from the temperate zones, then it's going to be hot over there. And then there's various also climates, so that each climate in each particular place on Earth is different according to how it is under the sky, and in different years how it is under the sky. So for instance, in New York, in the summer it'll be hot, and in the winter it'll be cold, like snowing and stuff. In the summer it'll be hot and humid. So that even in one place, the weather changes. And then according to the different weathers of the different type of climates, according to where you're situated on Earth, this also affects the actual life that comes down to us from the upper spheres. What does it mean? That there's different types of weather that are good for growing grapes, and then there's types of weather that are good for growing corn. There's types of weather that are good for growing other things. Then there's types of weather, like in the Sahara Desert, it's not good for growing nothing. So, and all of this is according to where this is under our sky. And the basic way that the Kabbalah explains this, and some of these things will sound rather astrological, but a lot of the modern astrology is already so far away from the real inner meanings of what it's talking about that I'm not going to try to make a connection to it, but rather when we give these explanations, you'll see how it actually works. So that the actual astrology means that what we're saying is that when we stand down here on Earth, we have a sky that's revolving around us. And in this sky there's stuck stars and planets and a sun and a moon. And all of these things are revolving around us. Now, I'm not trying here to negate the scientific theories that state that the Earth is revolving around the sun, because that's not what we're talking about. What we're talking is like this, that the way God created the universe is in such a way that whatever is turning around whatever else, in other words, the sun and the moon, and that's turning around the center of the galaxy, and those are turning around who knows what else, and who knows what the quasars are doing out there, and everything's turning around everything else. And all of this whole system, which, like we said, is sort of like a very complicated Swiss watch, which is all powered by one upper cycle, and it goes all the way to the tiny, tiny little circles of the atoms. This is all turning in such a way so that finally when man stands on Earth and looks up, there's a sky that's going around it. And this is the way it was created, that the sky should go around us. What does it mean around us? That when we stand here, according to the laws of nature, with gravity and inertia and everything else like that, it doesn't look to us like we're going around anything at all. It looks to us like we're totally stationary, even though we might be flying around the sun at who knows what kind of speed. And even though who knows what kind of speed the sun is flying around the center of the galaxy, and who knows what kind of speed the galaxy is flying around the center of the universe. But in Kabbalah, it explains that the actual center of the universe is Earth, our Earth, where we are. And this is not to mean, like I said, to negate any of these systems of science, which the systems of science are looking at it within relativistic nature, of that when you look at the galaxy that we're in, it looks like the sun is going around the center of the galaxy, and we are going around the sun, and the moon is going around us. But to us, it doesn't look like that. And this was by the plan of the upper design, that when we stand here, we don't feel that we're flying around. We basically feel that we're standing here, and the whole sky with a constellation goes around us. And according to how it goes around us, the different kind of weathers come down onto the different parts of the earth. And all of these different ways of the weather are included, as we say, in the upper cycle of the constellations, which again depends where under which constellation you are. That's how the weather is going to be over there. And also, according to the different weathers, is the actual economy of the world, so that even the cycle of economy is influenced by the astrological cycles. And this is not to be meant in a magical way like some of the astrology that you are usually listening to, but rather in the fact that the economy really comes out of the weather and out of the different things that happen in the sky. And how is this? In our days, society has gotten to be very, very complicated, and it's not so easy to see like in the old days. In the old days, it will be very, very easy to see that the economy is according to the sky. Because if you had a bad year and your wheat didn't grow, everybody was in big, big trouble. And if you had very good years and the wheat grew a lot, so everybody was happy, and everybody was healthy, and everybody was very rich, and everybody had lots of money. So that nowadays everybody thinks that it's the stock market that does it, but really the stock market is controlled by other things. So that, for instance, everybody understands that even in our days, if God forbid, there will be a big drought all over the world, and there will be a fantastic shortage of food, everybody's economy would be in trouble. And everybody understands that, so that, in other words, it's tied to the weather. The same thing like various other things, like floods or hurricanes, that recently there was very big hurricanes in Florida and the other states around it. And these hurricanes came because at that particular time of the year, the earth was being influenced by the light of the sun and the pull of the moon and whatever else, and this built up the winds in a certain way. Now, all of these things were included in the upper cycle, and the upper cycle got the ways of how it's going to be from the Ophanim. That as the angels of the Ophanim turn through their cycles, which it says that the angels called Ophanim are a cycle inside of a cycle, so according to that comes out the influence in the world. And in the Ophanim is included all the different ways that the world is going to be, not only the weather, but even the Ophanim, the ways that the stock market is going to turn from day to day, is all included in these angels. So like we explained, that what basically the Ophanim do is they divide the visions that they received from the upper angels, which are called the Chayot HaKodesh, the holy animals. That, in other words, in the holy animals, it's divided into 4 ways within one thing. But in order to come out with a cat, you have to divide it into more things, like you have to divide it into the general classifications, which the general 4 classifications are still life, plant life, animal life, and human life, talking life. And then within the animal life, it has to be divided into all the different classifications till you get to the general classification of the cat, which comes out from the classification of cat in the angels called the Ophanim, which as it turns through its cycles, one of the things that can come out from all the different permutations of how DNA can be encoded is a cat. But then it also has to be broken up into this particular cat, which in this particular cat is not really broken up in the Ophanim, because in the Ophanim it just breaks it up to the point where it can bring it into the unitary cycle which controls the whole world. Now, this explained in general how a soul of a cat comes out from the upper divisions. But in other words, as we said, in the Ophanim even, and even in their waste matter, it's really still the general energy which includes all these particulars. And in order to actually understand how the energy goes from before the upper cycle to after the upper cycle into our physical world, we first of all have to understand the subject matter of the Kavachut, the thin line of light, which comes into the world from the infinite light before the Tzimtzum, before the lessening of the light. And this will be explained in the next section.